met with Mark a couple of months ago and listened to him describe some of the projects that Vic West is doing to help protect the environment and to make their plant more sustainable. And then he led us on a very informative and inspiring tour. And so we were convinced that we had to have him come and spread the good news. Vic West has received recognition from the city as being one of the leaders in this area of industrial sustainability projects. So we're delighted that Mark will now do a presentation. He's open to questions as he goes along, but there will also be a Q&A after his presentation. So without further ado, thank you, Mark.
Then in 1986, Vic Metal, they merged with West Steel, and then that's a Winnipeg-based agricultural manufacturing company. And then that's how it got its name, Vic West. It was kind of like the Vic from Vic Metal and the West Steel, they merged together. And then in 2015, we were acquired by an Irish company called Kingspan. They do insulated metal panels and other building solutions like that. But we continue to operate as an independent business. So since 1930, Vic West has been manufacturing steel metal solutions for buildings, and they've been engineered to be durable to be able to withstand our harshest climates in Canada, because we get some pretty crazy weather here and there. But our mission is also to be sustainable in our holistic building practices within the Canadian market, with special attention to our customers and communities. So we have 5 facilities Canada-wide, one in Kensington, PEI, one in Victoriaville, Quebec, which was the first plant, one here in Shepard, Ontario, one in Saskatoon, and one in Edmonton, or just outside of Edmonton in Alberta. There's 450 plus employees across Canada, and we've been in business for over 90 years. So the Planet Passionate Initiative. So while we are very passionate about durable products and sustainable products as well, we're also very passionate about how our business affects the world. It's more than just a publicity or marketing thing for us. It's more so actually caring about what our impact is and how we can change that. So the Planet Passionate Initiative is based off of 4 pillars, those being carbon reduction, circularity, renewable energy, and water recycling. So Planet Passionate, it's a $500 million investment worldwide by Kingspan. Kingspan is a very large conglomerate of businesses. Most of them act independently, but they also have more than 250 locations worldwide, us being one of them. But every single one of those businesses has to follow everything in Planet Passionate. No one's exempt from it. So the pillars here, so carbon, we're reducing our carbon emissions for scope 1 and 2 emissions. So those are your indirect and direct emissions. Scope 2 is going to be things from your utility. Scope 1 is going to be anything that comes from your process. And then scope 3 is the best definition for it is anything except scope 1 and 2. There's no real definition for it. That's the best they can do. So for scope 1 and 2, we're aimed at a 90% reduction, but the overall goal, that's the minimum, the overall is to be net zero. And then for scope 3, we are holding our suppliers accountable as well to reach a 50% reduction in scope 3 emissions. And for circularity, this is probably our most ambitious target. We started this journey, Planet Passionate journey, in 2020, and it goes until 2030. So it's a 10-year initiative, and in those 10 years, one of our goals is to be zero waste to landfill. That's going to be the hardest one to tackle. It's definitely been our most challenging project so far. It really boils down to employee engagement and employee compliance. You have to convince over 450 people to get on board with, using the proper waste streams and recycling and composting when they can. So it's definitely an ambitious target. For renewable energy, we have to procure 60% of our energy.
Is that 2030 for your target?
Yes, every target is 2030.
6 years.
Yeah. So it started in 2020, so it's a 10-year initiative. But from
Okay.
6 years from now, we have to achieve all of these. Otherwise, we get penalized by Kingspan. So for energy, we have to procure 60% of our total energy from renewable sources. That's not just electricity, that's everything. That's propane, diesel, natural gas, everything. So your total energy gets quite high. So you have to procure 60% of that from renewable sources. And then 20% of that energy also has to come from energy you generate at your own facilities. So whether that's through for us, that's through solar, but you could also do through other means. But we're more so specifically targeting solar on the rooftops of our own facilities. And then for water, we're focused on rainwater harvesting. So our target there, the Kingspan global target is to harvest 100 million liters by 2030, which is an insane amount of water. For us, our target is to harvest 1 million liters a year, which is a little more feasible, but still pretty ambitious. So as I said, it's a comprehensive 10-year plan aimed to improve our impact on 3 big global issues: climate change, circularity, and the protection of our natural world.
Sorry to keep interrupting.
Yeah, no, not a problem.
100 million liters annually?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're planning to do 1% of that,
1%.
just in Stratford?
Yes, just
in a year?
No, not just in Stratford, across our whole business.
But, all of the Vic?
All of Vic
Your
West,
5 plants?
we'll do 1%, yes.
Your 5 facilities?
Yeah. So for carbon reduction, so in 2020, Vic West went carbon neutral in how we manufacture our products. We achieved that through renewable energy certificates, more specifically through Bullfrog in the US. That was initially what Kingspan had done from 2015 to 2020, that was the goal. Now we've decided that's not really good enough, because a renewable energy certificate, I know it funds renewable energy projects and things like that, but it's not really reducing your carbon, you're still emitting, so it's not really net zero. So for us, we're now directly reducing our emissions through carbon reducing projects. So since 2020, the start of Planet Passionate journey, we've reduced our scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions by 30%. Our yearly target for that is to do 10% a year. So in 2020, we took our total emissions, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we took a percentage of that, and every year, 10% of that base year from 2020, we have to do that every year in reduction. So by the end of 2024, we have to reduce by a minimum of 40%. We're also converting all of our fleet vehicles. So all of our executives have fleet vehicles because they travel all the time. Those are all going to electric by 2025. So at the end of this year, no more of our leased vehicles or bought vehicles will be allowed to be ICE vehicles. They all have to be EVs. And to support that, we're also installing EV chargers on our facilities as well, so that our employees are also encouraged to purchase like a hybrid or an electric vehicle itself, because we give them a card, they can tap it on the EV charger, and we pay for them to charge their car at our facility. We're also replacing all of our propane and diesel lift trucks. We load a lot of steel onto a lot of trucks, so lift trucks are a huge source of carbon emissions, less so than other things, but the propane and the diesel burn from that process definitely has an impact. So right now we're roughly 50% of the way there from converting our lift trucks. I think we have around 65 total lift trucks, and around 35, 36 of them have been converted so far. This picture here, that's what we use to unload our coils, our steel coils off of the trucks. It's capable of lifting 20 tons, so it's a very large unit, and that's fully electric. And then we're also investing in renewable energy, as I mentioned before, to further reduce our emissions.
I'm that guy. Your shifts there, you run 24 hours?
No, we run 2 shifts, one from 7 to 3 and one from 3 to 11.
And will that last the 16 hours?
Yeah, in the winter the performance dwindles a little bit, which is another issue kind of with our electric vehicles. Canadian winters are brutal.
Yes.
You can lose up to 40% of a charge, of your charging capacity in an electric vehicle.
Unless you want to wear a parka.
Exactly. So it does last all day. The plug-in is right inside the coil bay, so if it does need to be charged, it's not a problem at all. It's right there.
You probably charge midday when at breaks and
Yeah,
lunch
break
and-
times, lunch,
Yeah.
when it's not being used, yeah.
What about your transport fleet?
Transport fleet, so we actually outsource all of our transportation.
Oh,
To
like
Ryder.
you said, suppliers.
Yeah, to Ryder, yeah, so we're also holding them accountable. We're looking into things like biodiesel or, electric trucks where we can find them. But yes, they will be held accountable for that 50% reduction in scope 3 as well.
Thanks.
Moving on to renewable energy. So our facility in Victoriaville, Quebec, it runs on 100% hydroelectricity and renewable natural gas. Renewable natural gas is definitely a promising product. It's kind of serves as an interim to when you're trying to reduce your natural gas consumption. You use natural gas in the meantime while you're trying to find other ways to completely eliminate natural gas. So what renewable natural gas actually is it's there we go. It's actually called biomethane. So when you take decaying matter, as it decays, organic matter for that matter, as it decays, it releases methane. So the producers of RNG, they take decaying organic matter, they put it in large vats, they add anaerobic bacteria to it to help it break down faster, and that produces a massive amount of methane. Methane then has to be filtered and then go through a couple processes to become usable natural gas, and then they inject that into the natural gas grid. So you can purchase renewable natural gas where it's available. It's up and coming in Ontario. There's a few places in Quebec that do it right now. It's not a net zero product, but it's a very low embodied carbon product. And that's because you're preventing, by capturing that methane from decaying organic matter, you are actively preventing methane from entering the atmosphere, which is around 12 times as intense as a greenhouse gas. So you're lowering your carbon intensity by 12 times roughly by using renewable natural gas. And it's also using carbon that's already in the carbon cycle. You're not adding any more carbon. It's kind of like recycling carbon rather than adding more. So Victoriaville is definitely our most carbon neutral facility, or close to carbon neutral. They have to replace a few propane lift trucks. Once they do that, they'll essentially be like 99% renewable, that facility, which is great. Quebec's grid is 99.9% renewable, which is awesome. It's a little harder once we get out to Saskatoon and Alberta, because their grids are so dirty. But for Victoriaville, it's great. So for solar, we have 2 solar PV systems within our company, one of them in Stratford and one of them in Edmonton. The one in Stratford has 1,206 panels, and that delivers a 584 kilowatt peak. Kilowatt peak is just how much energy you're going to be producing total at peak performance. So you're only really going to get that during summer months, during peak sunlight hours. So from like 11 to 5 or 6-ish when the UV is really high.
What that converts to carbon offset for that source?
For carbon offset, in Stratford, it's roughly in between, I'd say 50 to 70 tons of carbon per year. It's a lot lower than it would be in Alberta because our grid is roughly 70% clean with the amount of nuclear that we have. In Alberta, the reduction is like 200 tons because their grid's so dirty. Even though the solar array is so much, like it's less than half the size of Stratford's, the investment in carbon there is much greater. So up on the top here, that's the Edmonton one. You can't see it super well, but they look very similar right now. The Stratford one's twice as big, over twice as big actually. But year to date, Stratford has generated and consumed 38% of our electricity from solar, and Atchison or Edmonton has generated and consumed 47% of its energy from solar. Stratford's solar PV system was actually completed in the end of August 2023. So it's been operating for a year, and we've already done almost 40% of our total capacity. And the Edmonton one was completed at the end of March 2023. So they've got a little bit longer of a full run time.
Where is this located?
On the roof.
Where is
In
your
Stratford.
Oh, in Stratford, it's on the roof, yeah. So
Whose roof?
there's
Their
1,200.
roof.
There.
Vic West roof, yeah. So it's We actually had to, in 2022, towards the end, we actually had to redo our roof in order to do this. We had to reinforce it to get it graded by an engineer to be able to take these panels.
Snow loads.
Yeah, so that's also why they're on an angle too, so the snow will kind of like run off them as they heat up in the winter time. But yeah, there's 1,206 panels on the roof. I used to take people up there on tours back when we had scaffolding on the side, but we had to get rid of that for health and safety. It's also a health and safety issue to have people on the roof all the time, so unfortunately I can't take people up there anymore. I used to go up there every now and then just to kind of look around. It was cool to look at. It's also a nice little 10-minute break, but
I was up there once, it was amazing.
yes, Miriam was up there. She was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite the feat to see. You know, 1,206 panels is quite a lot. I haven't been up on the roof to see the one at Edmonton. It's a little, for lack of a better word, sketchy to reach. You have to go up kind of a weird ladder. So I wasn't really about that. It was the middle of winter and it was kind of icy up there, so I wasn't going to do that. But another interesting thing about our solar is that each of these is tied back into the local grid. So any excess energy we produce just goes back into the community for anyone to use. So it makes our grid that much more green. We've exported, right now Stratford exports roughly 40% of the energy we produce, because on weekends we're not working, and most of the time we're producing more energy than we can use. It's the same in Atchison as well. So a few more pictures. So these ones on the right are Stratford, and this is Edmonton. So the Edmonton one, this facility is probably 2/3 of the size of Stratford. So you can kind of imagine how many panels are actually up here. But it's very cool to see.
And it doesn't look like they're fully covered in Edmonton on the left.
Fully covered. Oh yeah,
like
the
they're
roof.
only on
Yeah.
sort of the one
Yeah,
half
so-
of the roof.
So the Edmonton facility, that's a good point. It covers 94% of their energy requirements. Their
Oh,
solar
that's why they
at
stopped.
peak performance. Yeah, so it's also there's certain regulations to how many you can have, how much your roof is graded for, things like that.
In Alberta.
Yeah, same in Stratford. Stratford's covers 86% of our energy at peak, but we're actually 1,206 is the maximum amount of panels we're allowed to have. Festival Hydro won't let us install anymore. It was
Oh, really?
actually
You don't want more energy?
yeah, they don't.
There's a cap at 500, like there's a threshold, so they
Yeah.
overbuilt by 84 kilowatts, but there's a threshold, once you go over the 500 kilowatt
Yeah.
mark, I believe there's a lot more hydro paperwork and costs.
Yes, there is a lot more paperwork. Yes, we had to jump through a lot of hoops to get it done. In Alberta, it was a lot easier. We got that project done in like 8 months. Stratford took 3 years.
You're at Vic West, obviously. Oh, but why is there that obstacle?
It has to do with utilities, right?
It's
They can't take
There's a
the,
transfer trip and a reporting connection back to the grid, so
Exactly, yeah.
there's a lot more involved. We also have to go back to the Hydro One grid at that point, so you're not just dealing with.
You're overloading the
you're dealing with
grid.
Hydro. No, it's just, there's a lot more fixed costs to go over 500, there's a lot more,
yeah, he's exactly right.
economically, it's not viable.
it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's like so.
And you're with,
Just local installer and advisor
of this,
of that type of
solar.
project.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
It also, the energy that we export in Stratford comes out as like a credit on our utility bill as well. So you can kind of imagine if you have more solar panels, you're spending less money on the utility. They're not super happy about that. It was a lot of like it was mostly regulatory things, but in Alberta they don't actually have a program to sell back your electricity. So we don't get a credit for it, but we don't really care. So we actually lease our facility in Edmonton, so we kind of worked out a deal with our leasing agent to even get this done. So we're just happy to have it on our facility. And then in Stratford, we also have this product called Solitubes. So a Solitube is a natural daylighting system. It involves a domatic prism on top that's installed on the roof, and then you have this tube, this reflective tube that comes down through the roof and into your ceiling. The coating on the inside of this tube is a patented product. So Solitube themselves, they're at the forefront of this industry. No one's really been able to replicate a coating that's as efficient as theirs. So the dome on the top refracts any incident light ray of light from the sun above 20 degrees. refracts it down into the tube. It then reflects through the tube down into this filter here. So this filter is a heat filter, but also a light filter. So it turns the light into white light and disperses it throughout the room, so it looks and works like a regular light bulb. And then it's a heat filter, so all the heat stays in the tube and dissipates at the top rather than going into the bottom. It does get very hot inside the tubes. So we have a total of 32 at our facility. They're all in our office space. A big thing with our offices is a lot of our upstairs offices don't have windows. So it's a great opportunity to give your employees some natural light, which has been proven to improve moods, increase work productivity, work efficiency. So it's not only does it decrease our electricity usage, it's also beneficial for our employees. This is also a Kingspan product. At the time we were doing the project, they were kind of just like going through it, but they are owned by Kingspan, but the same as us, they operate independently. So these are pictures of them on the roof at Stratford. And the reason that they're raised off the roof like that is because we get snow. They're about a foot tall. If they weren't raised off the roof, they just get covered and then they're useless. But they work much greater than we thought. We initially installed 8 in our boardroom, kind of as a flagship to see if we enjoyed them or if they worked properly. And then we ended up like not having to turn the lights on in our boardroom at all anymore, except for like a couple hours in the morning when it's dark. So then we were very pleased, decided to buy an additional, I think 26 or something like that tubes, and install them throughout the office. I have 2 in my office, which is great because I don't have a window, so it's nice to get some natural light. I don't turn my lights on anymore, which is awesome. Another cool kind of feature of the lights themselves is inside you can buy an attachment. It's like a butterfly contraption, so it opens and closes like this. It acts like a dimmer. So if you wanted a little bit less light in your office or you're doing a presentation or something, you can dim the lights just like a regular light bulb. And then if you were building like a new building or a new factory or something like that, you can actually instead of installing lights, you can install just only solar tubes and have there be LED bulb inside the tube itself. So then you can turn that off and on if there's no sunlight, or if you need additional light. So your entire facility would only have skylights that you could double as lights if you wanted to. So they're very adaptable.
If I look up at your ceiling, what would I see? Like, is it a pod light?
No, it would be like, it looks like a square, like one of those roof tiles. But then, here, let me go back. Yeah, so you can kind of see it at the bottom there. It's kind of like, it looks like a square and like a drop ceiling.
Okay.
But essentially it just looks like a light. It looks like a square light, the best way I can describe it.
And it's sunlight.
Just something, yeah.
Like a fluorescent light.
Yeah, exactly, that's what it looks like. All right, moving on to circularity.
Do you have skylights in the plant?
No, we don't. We thought about putting, so Solitube has multiple different models for strength. They have like a very large industrial model that is specifically used for industrial warehouses. So we thought about it, but with all the solar panels on our roof, we couldn't fit them.
Yeah.
We'd either remove a couple panels, put a few skylights in.
You could put them where the solar panels.
Yeah,
are
exactly.
not,
But
right.
and the issue was that all the panels cover the entire warehouse ceiling, and then not the office roof space. So it wasn't really an option, which is unfortunate.
Good answer.
What we did instead is we replaced all of our fluorescent bulbs with LEDs and then attached motion sensors to them.
Yep.
So then if there's no one under it or no one moving under it, they turn off to increase efficiency.
And
Cool. So circularity. So as I mentioned before at the very start, this is definitely our biggest hurdle. Really boils down to employee compliance. I visited each of our facilities, explained like the importance of waste, the proper procedure and what you can and can't put in your waste bins. So we have segregated waste systems at all of our Vic West facilities. In Stratford, we have 5 streams: compost, cardboard and paper recycling, wood recycling, mixed recycling, and waste. That's the same as our Victoriaville facility and our Edmonton facility as well. The Saskatoon facility has 3, and so does Kensington. But since 2020, we've had success in reducing our waste by 30%. So we're getting there. Still a pretty big hurdle. We have 6 years to do it, but we're not going to be able to do it alone. I don't think. We might have to ask, a waste management company or something. We do some waste audits every now and then to really understand where our waste is coming from. We do education presentations, kind of like lunch and learns, with our hourly employees and our office employees to make sure that they're aware of what we're trying to accomplish and why. And of course, how you actually use the systems itself.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, not a problem.
I think most of us will find that most of our waste is packaging. But a lot of your packaging would be paper and metal, would it not?
A lot of our packaging is...
Which is recyclable.
Yeah, a lot of our packaging is...
And wood.
Yeah, like we ship all of our stuff in wood, like all of our products in wood, but the things we get in, a lot of it's cardboard, which is like,
No
we
problem.
recycle all of it. The inserts in our, like the coils come bare, they just come with an insert, so it's kind of like a toilet paper roll
Yeah.
almost. So
But wouldn't that
those
go
are
back to be
cardboard, those are
reloaded?
recycled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of it comes from employees,
Oh,
so employee
internal.
waste, internal waste. Some of it does come from packaging, though. Some things we do get in are like shrink wrapped or something like that,
Yeah.
which is, we would love for that to not be the way they ship their products. So again, that's something we're trying to hold our suppliers accountable for, to make sure that if there's a environmentally friendly option, maybe we have to pay a little bit more for it. We'd rather that, because it aligns with our goals and it makes our lives easier. So then rainwater harvesting. So this is probably our biggest success other than the solar in our entire environmental initiative. We have 2 rainwater harvesting systems. The second one in Victoriaville was just completed in April. The one in Stratford was completed at the end of 2022. So we had the full year of 2023 to run it. And in 2023, it harvested 600,000 liters of rainwater. We don't track how much we're actively harvesting, we only track how much we use. So we actually use 600,000 liters of rainwater. For our facilities, our process doesn't involve for our products, it doesn't involve any heat, water, any chemicals of any kind. Our process is purely cold forming and shearing steel. So we don't need water in our process, but a lot of Kingspan divisions do. So for us, we only use it for our restrooms to flush toilets. It can't come out of sinks because it's technically not potable water. Ontario has very, very strict guidelines on what you can and can't use harvested rainwater for, especially for cleanliness. So our tanks have three stages of cleaning. The first is a macro filter. So our entire roof is the catchment area. So whenever it rains, there's drains all over the roof that all drain into a filter. It's a carbon filter, but also it catches any debris like sticks or gravel or leaves
Seagulls.
or whatever. Exactly. Because seagulls used to love our roof actually. And then after all the macro filter, it all goes into the rainwater tank where it's injected with chlorine. We have to monitor that daily. Our chlorine and UV light system, that's for any cyanobacteria or algae growing in the tank, or to make sure it doesn't grow in the tank actually. Our system actually sends reports to our water company to make sure that we're following proper concentrations and everything like that, like cleanliness in our water. If it's not, we get in trouble. So it's very safe, and very clean, but as per Ontario guidelines, it can only be used for toilets. It can't come out of your taps. Just because if it does come out of your taps and someone drinks it and they get sick, which is like a 1 in a million chance, then you're liable for it. It's a huge health and safety issue. Your system will get shut down. It's a big problem. With Stratford being our flagship, both of those pictures on the right are from Stratford. With Stratford being our flagship, we kind of just mocked up the entire system and just like copy and pasted it into Victoriaville. So they have exact same capacity, exact same size, everything like that. So with those two tanks together, we expect to harvest at least 1 million liters of rainwater a year. So we're already hitting our target, if not 1.2 million liters, because they should both be doing around 500,000 to 600,000 liters a year. Yeah.
Yes, what do you do with the excess water when it rains?
It just overflows into the storm drain. So there's there's not a picture of it, but so there's an intake pipe and there's an overflow pipe at the very top. So once it's full, if there's excess rain, it just goes. We don't track it; it just goes right down to the storm drain. And we also plan to make excess water available to our communities for use. So on the outside of our facilities, we're installing community taps, we call them, where you can bring like a water jug or anything, come up, open it up, fill your jug, whatever you're filling up, take as much water as you want, no cost to you, use it for whatever you want, if that's gardening, lawn irrigation, agriculture, anything. We use it for our restrooms, but we also are still tied into the Stratford grid. Our only source of water is the tank itself, so if it does empty, we have to fill it up with city water. We track all of that, so we make sure that we're not overestimating how much water we're using.
So you clean it enough that it's potable?
No, it's not potable.
No. So you're still on grid for potable water.
Yes, yeah. So we're still on grid for our taps.
So all of us have been on an aircraft, and if you read the little note, don't drink the water coming out of the tap in the latrines in an aircraft.
Yeah.
Why can't that happen in a building in Ontario? Where you don't drink, just don't drink this stuff.
I would love for that to be a thing, but yeah, it's just like health and safety wise, yeah, they just, with rainwater specifically, they're
It's
not.
some rule that has to be adjusted and it can happen.
Exactly, but and then that's a good point for our community taps as well, is we're gonna have a big old sign pasted on the outside saying, don't drink this water. So if someone
Does the
drinks
fire
it, then
department
it's
use your water
They do
to
not.
fill their pumpers?
They do not, but they could if they wanted to.
Or construction companies when they flood streets to,
Yep.
when they're doing road construction?
Yeah,
they need water.
anyone could use it for any purpose whatsoever. As long as it's not like nefarious or anything.
Yes, there must have been quite expensive outlay, right? Because you had to send all your roof drains to one location.
Yeah,
You then had to replumb all of your toilets with this water.
yeah, so we had to punch holes in the roof for drains to actually be there. So we had to contract roofers to do that. Then we had to contract plumbers to come and tie it into the system. And tie every toilet into the system as well. So it was quite it was definitely a fairly large monetary investment, but we didn't really care about the payback. It was more so about, we need to get this done. We want to decrease how much water we're using from the grid. What can we do? So we worked with a company called Clean Flow. They gave us this giant recycled PVC container. So repurposing, which is great in the name of circularity as well. So yeah, it was definitely a large monetary investment, but that didn't matter to us. It was more so we're getting it done regardless of the cost.
It's really common to do construction now. You're finally seeing it push forward. It's very straightforward and kind of a no-brainer doing the construction.
Yeah.
We've done them with underground concrete cisterns as well, and then it
Yeah.
becomes your fire backup if you're a rural property.
Yeah.
You're not connected to city fire.
Exactly.
They are permitting that to be your fire source.
Yeah, which
as
is awesome.
well as for toilets, and it's treated and.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, the underground units are definitely a little more common, I would feel. For us, we already had this empty room that was our showroom, and we kind of just wanted to make it look almost like a brewery for water. I mean, that's a picture of it at night. It looks kind of cool, right? Like right after it rains, it's like kind of reflecting off the ground. So we kind of like how it looks. We've actually got some engagement too from people driving by. I actually talked to the general manager of Basin in town. He had seen the tank just from driving by, and they're actually currently doubling their square footage in town for their factory. And they were very interested in, knowing how this worked, who we worked with, how we got it done, so that they could maybe do something similar, because their shareholders really care about the environment.
Mark,
you mentioned this a couple of times, that cost wasn't a factor in this decision of rainwater capture, but have you costed out what kind of money you're saving?
Like every project we do calculate an ROI, but this one is probably like 50 years. So we calculate it just for the fun of it, I guess, and then we're just like, we don't care, we gotta do it anyway. It's a matter of principle at this point of, you know, if our company, all of our divisions together are willing to invest this much money in the environment, we're not gonna be all willy-nilly with what we do. We're gonna get it done, and we're gonna get it done right. And it's not about the payback. It's not about saving money or necessarily even marketing. It's more so about, you know, we want to make sure that we're at the forefront of sustainability, really actually reducing our effect on the environment, not buying certificates, and really making a difference, and hoping that companies around us in every community where we're located, that they follow suit as well.
With all your initiatives that you were, like with the RNG and the EV fleet changeover and the solar carbon offset, 50 tons here for Stratford, what was the total? You might have mentioned in the beginning, I must have missed it. Is there a total carbon offset that you have just for like the Stratford facility on an annual basis?
For the Stratford facility, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but for a company as a whole, we've reduced our carbon by 30%. I'd say Stratford probably contributed, I'd say 10 to 15% of that.
Okay, so you don't have it in tons, but you have the data.
Yeah, I don't have.
I'm curious to know,
Yeah.
Tons per year would be curious to know.
Yeah, tons per year I don't have specifically for Stratford, but Stratford and Victoriaville are currently doing the heavy lifting in terms of carbon reduction. Yeah.
What would be your better ROI projects?
Our better ROI projects? Solar is probably one of them. That was a massive investment. It's probably around 25 years, I would say. That's probably the best one. RNG, renewable natural gas, is around 7 times as expensive as regular natural gas, so there's not really a payback on that one, except for carbon tonnage. We didn't really calculate that one. It was more so we're making the switch, we got to do it. We're looking at doing that in Stratford as well. It's a little bit harder to do in Ontario. We're currently working with our utility to try and get it done. And it's not currently available RNG out west yet. There are people producing it, but it's yet to be made available commercially.
Are you a Class A customer? Do you use enough power to be on the Class A side, or
No.
standard Class B?
Yeah. We did look at a project that would have made us Class A as a alternative heating source. It's kind of like, I don't know if anyone's heard of it, it's kind of like a sandbox or a rock box. You use electricity to heat sand or rocks up to, it's usually iron slag, up to a really high temperature, and you use off-peak energy to do it. So then when you're on peak, you use the excess heat from it to heat your facility. It just wasn't really feasible space-wise, and we didn't have the HVAC for it in town, so we couldn't really do it. But there are projects out there that do things like that as well.
Do you use nat gas for heating and cooling?
Yeah, so cooling is electric. Heating is natural gas at every one of our facilities except for Kensington. They don't have natural gas pipelines down there, so they use propane.
What about heat pumps?
Heat pumps, we've looked into heat pumps as well as geothermal. We're kind of just trying to decide what makes the most sense. Geothermal, I think we've kind of decided against, because we'd have to drill really far down in the back of our facility to
I don't think Stratford allows it.
Yeah, exactly. So electric is definitely something we're looking at in Ontario because our grid is cleaner. The reason we're not looking at it in Saskatoon and Alberta is because the grids are so dirty that you're using natural gas to heat, but if you put an electric heat pump, you're still going to be using fossil fuels because you're going to be having an increased electricity load anyway. So the carbon savings there isn't going to be much at all. It's going to be negligible.
Yeah.
That's the end of the presentation. So if anyone's got
questions. There's a growing trend for hydrogen-powered industrial scale vehicles. Is that something that you've looked at?
We've looked at hydrogen vehicles. Right now we have almost like, I think we only have one electric vehicle left to replace, or one ICE vehicle left to replace. So like hydrogen's on the up and coming. It's somewhat available now, but for us it makes more sense to do electric, just because that's what's more widely available right now. But hydrogen's definitely, I would say, a promising up and coming project for sure.
What puzzles me about hydrogen, why don't we use it for the central source field to generate electricity versus nuclear? And Stratford could have its own little hydrogen power plant and go sort of off grid, you know, but we have, like we say, we're already pretty green in the province of Ontario.
Yeah.
Because hydrogen to me is a more complicated process than an electric motor in a car.
Hydrogen takes an insane amount of electricity to make it. to run the
Yeah,
hydrogen.
it's more about the net. Yeah,
The,
it's a very
fuel
intensive process.
Units of energy.
It's also,
Right.
yeah, you have to strip it from water as well. It's also an intensive process.
They've made some good headway just while we're on hydrogen topic.
Yeah.
A lot of like diesel engines and stuff. That's why I was curious what your fleet ratio is like. Are you talking about gas
Yeah.
sales vehicles and pickup trucks you're big in? Are you looking at some of your highway transportation as well?
Yeah, for us, the electric vehicles right now are just our fleet vehicles, as in like our sales guys and our executives. Our fleet, we're looking at, we contract out Ryder to do most of our transport. So it's more so getting them on board to go either biodiesel or electric. It's something we're currently in the works of. Scope 3 is very difficult to deal with because it does boil down to, you know, your suppliers and what you can do there. Some success in Scope 3 that we have had though is we get all of our steel from AMD, ArcelorMittal de Fosco in Hamilton, which is a massive, if anyone's ever seen it, an absolutely massive steel mill. They align with us in that they're now producing green steel through electric arc furnaces. So on the topic of hydrogen as well, usually you use something called like coke and coal to in the process of making steel. They're now trying to use hydrogen instead, which is a lot cleaner. It's a little bit more costly, a little less available, but there are places in Europe doing it. There's steel mills in Sweden that are doing it, and it's working great. They have a product that they're on the come up of releasing called X-Carb, and that's decreasing their embodied carbon in their steel by, gosh, like 80%. Yeah, they're going from like 2.6 tons from like, you know, the blast furnace with coke and coal to an electric arc furnace supplied by renewable energy. The arc furnace is like 0.3 embodied tons of carbon per ton of steel. And yeah, the regular method's 2.6, so the reduction there is insane. So that's something we're interested in, you know, partnering with them, getting that product to make our products so that we're decreasing our embodied carbon by that much. Mm-hmm. We're also coming out with EPDs, that's an environmental product declaration. So that'll be available on our website for anyone to see. It shows exactly how much carbon is in our products and what that carbon is doing. So there's different things in an EPD like global warming potential or ozone depletion potential. Those are all measured. So it's a kind of a way for our customers and anyone interested to see exactly what our products are about.
How do you finance it? Does Vic West cover the cost, or does head office cover the cost because they're driving this initiative?
I don't actually know. I'm not really involved in the
price
finances,
of steel, you
but
gotta be
I do.
competitive.
So Vic West, we operate independently. So when we're buying our own steel, it's coming out of our own pocket. Like not Kingspan, they kind of just oversee us. They're not really involved in our process at all. So yeah, I'd say it's more so us that's doing.
Right, so
doing all
you know,
the
you're
procurement.
still competitive with Agway and.
Yes, yeah,
And who
exactly.
else is in Exeter?
Yeah.
And yet they're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we kind of have our head and shoulders above of other people in the industry in terms of sustainability right now, which is good for us. But it's also, again, it's not really about the competition aspect for us. It's
Does
more
that show
so
up as lead points with your product then?
The sustainability.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because your
it's
steel would
definitely-
have a higher lead point value than steel from, is it Annex? What's the name of the other Exeter company that produces?
I'm not sure.
Gold steel. Anyways, Agway.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the lead point value, but yeah, like our sustainability is definitely at the forefront of our like company. It's definitely something that people come to us for. But again, it's not like we do use it in
If
marketing.
you roll into
but-
the lead point thing, that's a big deal in the construction industry.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't say that necessarily. This like we're not making steel ourselves, so
I know you're rolling, but it's
yeah,
part
we're
of the
rolling
process.
it. But yeah, so the process of it. Another thing too with the steel, with the X-carb steel, is it's a minimum 70% recycled content. So we recycle all of our steel and
Good.
sell it back to a third party, and they sell it back to steel mills. But I actually had the opportunity to tour AMD in Hamilton, and that looks like it's just giant crucibles of lava.
What plant was it?
The one at like the ArcelorMittal DeFasco plant in Hamilton.
It's the old DeFasco?
Yeah. AMD bought them, or
Bought DeFasco.
ArcelorMittal bought DeFasco. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks like you can actually see them dumping scrap metal into the crucibles with some raw material. But yeah, it's really cool to see exactly what they're doing. They're pretty head and shoulders above a lot of companies, or a lot of steel mills as well, in terms of sustainability. So we're definitely happy with them being our primary steel supplier.
So, this isn't a business question, but a culture question, because listening to you, I get the strong impression that the leadership, it's a top-down thing, the leadership are sold on this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So our CEO, the Kingspan CEO, his name is Gene Murtoff. He lives in Ireland. He is gung ho about this stuff. He is like everywhere all at once, just asking, what we're doing, how we're doing. Every meeting we have quarterly meetings, and every time he's there, asking everyone what they're doing, how they're doing, what he can do for them, what resources they need. He is definitely the one driving this as much as possible. He loves this stuff. He's very much in tune with the environment. He likes everything about it. He's excited to hear about what you're doing, and then that trickles down through the rest of our top management team. Anyone that I've talked to in top management is always asks me, at least in Vic West, about what we're doing environmentally. They're always interested. It's always part of our meetings. It's always mentioned. It's communicated. Everyone's very excited about it.
So you've got leadership, and then you sort of imply this now, it impacts your recruitment and retention then?
I would say, yeah. It, definitely for me, it was when I started at Vic West in 2023. So for me, it was very, I don't know, it was just nice to see a company that cared about the environment. That's what I went to school for. And a lot of environmental science schooling is kind of like doom. They're like, the world's gonna end, what can you do to stop it? So it was nice to see a company that was actually trying to stop it. And it's great, it feels like you're actually making a difference, because I'm the one tracking our KPIs and our performance. I actually know how much of a difference we're making, and it feels great to be a part of that. So it's definitely, I would definitely say it's definitely part of a retention thing for employees as well.
On the same topic you touched on a little bit earlier, I'd be just curious on some of the initiatives that stuck out in your mind with getting it down to the mass employees, right? Like, what successes have you had communicating that and getting that momentum from the teams, right?
Yeah.
I'd be curious.
No, it's great. So I do what I call Planet Passion education presentations. So I'll visit each plant, talk about our project, what we're doing, take their questions. A lot of them have, concerns about if their jobs are going to be impacted by a project or if anything else is going to happen to them. And we assure them that it's nothing to do with their jobs at all. It's more just to do with how the company is sourcing its energy, what we're doing that way. And the engagement's been great. Like if I walk around the facility, which I try to do because I want to get to know the people in my facility, on the floor, the hourly guys will come up to me and ask, what are we doing? Planet Passionate, how's Planet Passionate going? How are our targets this year? Things like that. So the engagement's there. A lot of that groundwork was laid by my former boss. He was also very gung-ho about this stuff. He retired this year at the age of 68. He's a Welsh guy, very happy. Loves to run around and talk about this stuff. So a lot of the groundwork was laid by him. But yeah, the engagements come all there. That's, we take a survey every year about how the communication about Planet Passionate is, what they would like to see from us, things like that. So we really try to work the engagement there.
Are either of your, the corporations, B corporations, Kingspan or Vic West?
Sorry, what do you mean by B corporations?
Oh, B corporations are noted worldwide for their environmental philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
You should be a B corp.
I think Kingspan is, for sure, as a whole.
Yeah.
They own so many companies that I don't know off the top of my head, but I think that Kingspan's been recognized, I believe, yeah.
I'm sure it will be. And one more question. Did the city of Stratford contribute in any way to success of these goals, or if so, how? If no,
I would
is there anything
say,
you could have done?
I don't think we worked with the city for any of our projects. They were great for the Green Recognition Program. Mayor Ritzman came through, toured our facility with a few of the city council members, and that was awesome to get some engagement there. But as far as anything from the city, I don't know if there's anything they could have done actually for us. Specifically, there was no zoning issues or anything like that, because everything we were doing was already within our property. Yeah, so they also didn't get in our way, so.
You didn't tell them.
The circularity piece, I think you talked about, at one point, food waste and sorting out when they use stuff, putting it
Yeah,
into the
segregating waste, yeah.
Segregating waste. How do you convince people on the floor to pack their lunches in a way that contributes to the targets that you're trying to reach? Because I teach, so
Yeah.
I walk through the college hallways.
That's the main hurdle. Yeah, it really boils down to sitting people down with like I said, like educational presentations. You can get into the kind of, you don't really want to get into like the penalizing aspect of it. You don't want people like to be looking through the garbage can and be like, you just threw this out, we're gonna dock your pay. It's also illegal, but you know, it really boils down to getting people on board with Planet Passionate and with our goals, and that takes engagement and it takes care. You know, you can talk to somebody, you can talk to an hourly guy about, or like an hourly worker about the environment, but if he's unhappy with his work at the moment, then he's not gonna care. Or if he's unhappy with the company, he's not gonna care. So it also goes down to our work culture of how we take care of our employees. Do we hear their concerns, their qualms with the business, and do we fix those, or do we just brush it under the rug? So it really goes hand in hand with our operations team. We work closely with our ops managers just to ensure that our guys are happy. They're willing to learn. There's got to be willingness there. If somebody's against something, you gotta sway them. But yeah, it's a work in progress. Definitely our biggest hurdle, as I said. It's you got to get over 450 people to pack garbage-less lunches, essentially.
Yeah, like in school, right? When you
Yeah,
said
exactly. Yeah.
It sounds like you have to shift your focus from the company to the species.
Yeah,
It isn't
exactly.
for the company. Vic West could care less.
Yeah,
It's for your children,
Yeah, exactly.
grandchildren's survival.
exactly. That's
The
why it goes
planet
down
will
to,
still be here.
Yeah.
Species?
that's why it goes down to the education aspect of, telling them why it matters, getting them on board with environmentalism, why we need to decrease our waste to landfill, why it's important, what that does for the environment, what we can do to help. So, yeah, exactly.
So you spoke about holding your suppliers to a higher standard. Now, I'm interested in the trend towards consumer expectations for this type of initiative or this type of culture in a company. Do you think this has or will be giving you a competitive advantage with customers in your industry?
I think to an extent, yeah. Some people do care about the environment, like everyone in this room, for example. So steel roofs, as they're becoming more affordable, you're seeing a lot more of them go up. They have a 50-year lifespan or more. They're recyclable, things like that. So the sustainability aspect of that is very attractive to certain people. Other people, you know, they just care about whichever product's cheaper.
Not just the product, but your culture of.
Our
this
culture,
kind
yeah,
of
that's
initiative.
a huge thing too. Yeah, is our, you know, we'll talk to like Home Hardware, for example, about them selling our products, and they care about our company because we're sustainable and it aligns with their goals, right? So even talking to people that we supply, their companies that we supply, they're very happy to hear that we're doing things like Planet Passionate. So it's definitely giving us, I think it does give us a little bit of an edge that way in the market.
Getting it baked into your brand, right?
Exactly, yeah. Like people associating, when people hear sustainability, we want them to think Vic West.
I'd like to thank you so much, Mark, for
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
and giving
Thank you
this
for having me.
presentation.
Thanks, Rob.